Bilad al-Sham is vital for the Ummah. It is the home to the Masjid al-Aqsa, and it is also where Isa alayhi salam will descend to upon his return, amongst other things. Furthermore, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam once said, "The people of the West will continue to triumphantly follow the truth until the hour is established." On this hadith, the great scholar Ahmad ibn Hanbal puts forward the view that this is a reference to the people of Bilad al-Sham, stating, "The people of the West are the people of Levant," meaning they are the people of the West. Now, a quick overview in Islamic history shows us many decisive battles that were won and hosted in Bilad al-Sham. This includes the Battle of Yarmouk, the Battle of Hattin, and the Battle of Ain Jalut. Additionally, there are a significant number of Muslim warriors buried in there. In this video, we will look into 5 great Muslim warriors buried in Bilad al-Sham. But before we start, please remember to give this video a like and to leave us a comment. This will help us in the YouTube algorithm, inshallah. Jazakallahu khairan. The first is Tariq Ibn Ziyad. Tariq Ibn Ziyad was a Berber warrior who is mostly remembered for being the warrior who founded al-Andalus. In 711 Common Era, he defeated the infamous Visigoth king Roderick at the Battle of Guadalete, effectively opening up the Iberian Peninsula. And it is for this reason that he and his senior Musa ibn Nusayr are often regarded as the founding fathers of al-Andalus. Interestingly, Ibn al-Qutayya narrates while he, Tariq ibn Ziyad, was on board, sleep overcame him, and whilst asleep, he had a dream in which he saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was surrounded by his followers from Mecca and Medina, i.e. the Sahaba, who were armed with swords and bows. Wallahu a'lam. Back to Tariq ibn Ziyad. When Tariq ibn Ziyad arrived to rally his men, he allegedly burnt down the very boats that brought him over here, as a sign that there was no turning back. Furthermore, he gave this following speech: "O my people, whither would you flee? Behind you is the sea, before you the enemy." Later, both Tariq ibn Ziyad and Musa ibn Nusayr would be recalled back to Damascus by the Umayyad Caliph. Not much is known after Tariq returned to Syria, but it is assumed that he died there in Damascus. Moving on, Nuruddin ibn Zengi, the noble Turkic warrior who was known as the Just King. Nuruddin was one of the most foremost Muslim warriors of the Crusade era, and he had arrived at perfect timing when the Ummah was divided. In 1154 Common Era, he became the first ruler since the start of the era to rule both Damascus and Aleppo, after both cities had previously been governed as individual city-states. On Nuruddin, Ibn al-Athir mentions the following on his justice: "I have read of the reigns of the previous princes and after the rightly guided caliphs, and Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, I have seen no better reign, nor one that aspired more to justice." And this was because Nuruddin was aware of the importance of justice. He understood the position he was in and the importance of leadership, and how bad leadership is disastrous for the Ummah, stating, "I fear for the subjects and all the Muslims, lest there should come after me ignorant, evil-doing, and oppressive governors." Furthermore, he was also a champion of the Sharia, stating, Allah, glory be to him, created people and knows what is best for them. He entitled a law which is for their benefit. People's welfare is achieved perfectly by adopting Islamic law. If there was more benefit in something other than Islamic law, Allah would have prescribed it. So we are in no need of any other law. As for the battlefield, Nur ad-Din was arguably the first to make recapturing Jerusalem as a priority. He asked the scholars of the time to write treatises about the importance of Jerusalem and the need to win it back. His finest moment was when he defeated a large Crusader coalition at the Battle of Harim in 1164 Common Era. And in hindsight, many look back at this event as a sign that the position of power was slowly turning to the side of the Muslims. Under Nur ad-Din, the Zengids managed to capture Fatimid Cairo, and then from there it became inevitable for the Muslims to recapture Jerusalem. Nur ad-Din would die in 1174 Common Era and would be buried in Damascus. He would not capture Jerusalem, however, that honor would fall on his greatest student. Speaking of which, Yusuf ibn Ayyub, better known as Salah ad-Din. Salah ad-Din is one of the most recognized Muslim warriors at this current time, and this is because he was the one who won back Jerusalem for the Muslims after the Crusaders had taken it in 1099 Common Era. Like Nur ad-Din, Ibn Taymiyyah suggests that we should study his reign, stating in his Majmu' al-Fatawa, "Let those who reflect contemplate the biographies of Nur ad-Din, Salah ad-Din and al-Adl, how Allah enabled and supported them, opened lands for them and humiliated their enemies." Back to Salah ad-Din, he had a very similar leadership style to Nur ad-Din, caring very much for his followers. Ibn Shaddad writes the following about his relationship with his followers. He, Salah ad-Din, put his companions at their ease and drew them out. He would ask one about one's health, how one looked after oneself, how one was eating and drinking, and all about oneself. Conversation in his cycle was unusually honest, though no one was spoken of except in praise. He liked to hear only good of people and had a very restrained tongue. In fact, I have never heard him speak ill of someone with enjoyment. Moving on to the battlefield, he decisively crushed the Crusaders at the Battle of Hattin in 1187 Common Era. Before the battle, Salah ad-Din ensured that he could have as much support as possible for the occasion. On this, Ibn al-Athir writes the following: "This year Salah ad-Din wrote to all his lands, summoning men to jihad. He wrote to Mosul, the Mesopotamia regions, Irbil and other places in the east, and to Egypt and all of Syria, calling upon them to engage in the jihad and ordering them to make all possible preparations." Once Salah ad-Din defeated the Crusaders, he moved out to Jerusalem, and in October 1187 Common Era, he captured the city after it had been under Crusader occupation for 88 long years. Following these events, he spent the remaining years of his life defending Jerusalem against King Richard and the Third Crusade. It is important to note, however, that Salah ad-Din achieved another major accomplishment. and that is, he's also credited for ending the Fatimid Empire and bringing back the four madhabs of Islam in Egypt and making them mainstream once again. On this, Ibn Taymiyyah writes the following: after Salah ad-Din conquered Egypt, the word of the Sunnah, which opposes the Rafidites, became prominent there. As a result, knowledge and the Sunnah flourished and became more apparent in the region. Now, interestingly, although Cairo and Jerusalem were under his realm, Salah ad-Din would choose to reside in Damascus. It had been his most beloved and preferred city. Later, he would fall ill and die in 1193 Common Era and be buried in that great Syrian city. Moving on. Baybars. Baybars was another powerful sultan who emerged during the Crusade era. Initially, he had been the leading general of the powerful Mamluk Bahriya faction. His first big moment came when he participated in the defense of Egypt against the Seventh Crusade, during which the Mamluks crushed the Crusaders at the Battle of Fariskour and Mansoura in 1250 Common Era. More importantly, Baybars was one of two generals who led the Islamic armies against the Mongols in the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260 Common Era, a decisive battle which essentially saved the Ummah from falling. On Ain Jalut, Ahmed al-Ashkar writes, Ain Jalut was not a strategic battle that had to be won to balance the score, but it was a battle for survival of Muslims and survival of Islam itself. The Mamluks of Egypt were the last remaining stronghold facing the Mongols, which illustrated just how important victory would have been. Going back to Baybars, shortly after defeating the Mongols, he had become Sultan of the Mamluks, and he would also restore the Abbasid Caliphate in 1260 Common Era, after it had fallen in 1258 Common Era. Furthermore, he would transform the Mamluks into arguably the strongest regional power of the era, and he would then use this new power to crush the remaining Crusader states. His most notable capture was the Crusader state of Antioch in 1268 Common Era, a Crusader state that lasted 170 years. On this event, Ibn Zahir would write, the Sultan himself led the march on Antioch and laid siege to it on the 1st of Ramadan, 666 Hijri, which translates to the 12th of May 1268 Common Era. After taking the city, he would send a harsh letter to the Count of Tripoli, who had been in charge of Antioch before it had fallen, which goes like this: We took the city by storm in the 4th hour of Saturday, the 4th day of the holy month of Ramadan, bringing despair to all of those whom you had chosen to garrison and defended. Not one of them but had certain wealth, and now there is not one of us but owns one of them and his money. You would have seen your knights prostrate beneath the horses' hooves. Baybars' harsh words towards the Count of Tripoli was partially because he had supported Hulagu Khan's massacre of the Muslims in Levant. From then on, the Mamluks would wipe out the remaining Crusader states. As for Baybars himself, he would die in 1277 Common Era and be buried in Damascus. Before moving on, we need to address the elephant in the room here. For all the great things that Baybars achieved, he is accused by al-Makrizi of killing another champion of Islam, his old rival Saifuddin Qutuz. If true, then this would leave a dark stain on his otherwise great legacy. Back to the list, this next person requires no introduction. Khalid ibn Walid. Khalid ibn Walid embraced Islam considerably late during the life of the Prophet ﷺ, but he would become a valuable member of the Ummah. On Khalid ibn Walid, the Prophet ﷺ reportedly said, "What an excellent slave of Allah is Khalid ibn Walid, a sword from among the swords of Allah." Furthermore, the righteous companion Abu Bakr as-Siddiq had said, "Women will no longer be able to give birth to the likes of Khalid ibn Walid." As for Umar radiallahu anh, he felt the need to dismiss Khalid because he was almost too good at his job, and he felt that the common man might rely on Khalid rather than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a victory, stating, "I have not dismissed them," and here he is referring to Khalid ibn Walid and al-Muthanna because of suspicion, but because the people venerated them excessively, and I was afraid that they would put their trust in them rather than Allah. So what did Khalid ibn Walid actually contribute to the Ummah? Well, he's most remembered for his campaigns against the Sassanid Persians and the Byzantine Romans during the Rashidun Caliphate's early conquests. Now, bearing in mind that the Persians and the Romans had been the two most powerful empires at the time, this further illustrates just how fine of a military leader Khalid had been. Initially, he was sent by Abu Bakr radiallahu anh to fight the Persians, and after successfully defeating them in notable battles such as the Battle of Chains or Dhat al-Salasil, he was called to fight the Romans in Syria. As the Muslimin had been struggling against the forces of Emperor Heraclius. In Syria, he would achieve arguably his most impressive victory on the battlefield, the Battle of Yarmouk, crushing the far larger Byzantine army and ending their reign over Levant. On this event, Ibn Ashaq goes on to say that the difference in numbers between the two armies had been 100,000 versus 24,000 in favor of the Byzantines. Wallahu a'lam. Going back to Khalid ibn Walid, he would die in 642 Common Era, and he would be buried in Homs. Before his death, he would declare that he would have preferred to have been killed in the battlefield and achieve martyrdom instead, rather than die due to natural causes. As a result, he would take a swipe at the cowards of the dunya, stating, "I participated in so and so number of battles, and every part of my body sustained an injury due to a stab or a shot. Yet, here I am, I die in my bed. Let not the eyes of the cowards ever taste sleep." If you liked the video, please remember to give it a like and to leave a comment. While you're at it, ensure you check out some of the other videos we have on the channel. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.